Ladies and gentlemen, let's talk some more about GTA 6 again, because this time I kind of want to touch on the vehicles. Now, through the recording of this video, I decided it was a good idea to show you what every single vehicle in GTA 5 would look like, but there are so many vehicles in the game that I can't even spawn all of them without my game crashing. So for that reason, I'm only showing you the supers in the sports class, which by themselves is already very big. For example, the sports and the super class combined are 112 vehicles, and obviously the sports class being the biggest one in the game at the time of recording, with a total of 70 vehicles. Yes, you heard that right, 70 sports cars. Now, if you were to compare this to any of the other classes, they are a lot smaller. Now, obviously, there is a very simple reason why there are so many of them, and that's because they're the most popular, and people are more likely to get them if they were to be released. It also begs the bigger question that I kind of want to touch on within this video. Is because if there's something that GTA always quote-unquote prided on, is the variety of vehicles that were going on within the game. However, as time went on, and primarily GTA Online of course, you saw the influx of sports cars happening as much as we did. The muscle car class being another one of those too, but primarily because most of the cars that are in the muscle class don't particularly belong there. Of course, we're looking at those wonderful lowrider vehicles. While in single player, you probably won't be bothered about this too much because most of the time they're just vehicles passing by, and you're most likely gonna try to pick the super or sports cars anyway whenever you are trying to go from A to B in single player. But in online, for example, a lot more things changes with that, because if there are so many supers and sports classes, it does make sense why there are so many of them, but at the same time, it really would be nice to be able to just drive some more variety in other classes, specifically, for example, the coupe class. When is the last time we had a coupe car added to the game? I don't remember either, because it's been that long. For the longest time, the Xeon Cabrio, or the regular Xeon, has been at the top of the game, and that's kind of been it. And I'm of course not really just only asking to have new best cars added to the game, just some more variety to be able to be played with it. Of course, this applies more to online than it does to single player, because in single player you always have your typical type of vehicles that you're going to get in certain areas. GTA always had this very nice variety in vehicles when it comes to single player. If you went to certain areas within the map, you had certain vehicles spawning there too, and thus it always felt like you were seeing different cars in different areas, and thus making the world a lot more interesting. Compare this to online nowadays, where the predominance of super and sports cars are just really reigning supreme right now. It would be nice, like I said before, to have more variety going on within the game. Obviously, in the current state of GTA Online, having a lot of other vehicles roaming around in free roam isn't really that much of a point, because most of the time you're just going to get your ship blown up. But hey, one can only dream. It's not necessarily only the fault of Rockstar in terms of what vehicles people pick. The main reason for that is because people just typically kind of go with what the top vehicle is and just kind of go with that. Taking an example, for example, with the Wagner, for the longest time this was the best supercar in the game, and you didn't really see anyone else using any different vehicles because they didn't have a reason for it. So for that reason, it would also be nice to have more variety within the class. Sure, nowadays you still do have certain cars that are much better in certain tracks, but I guess in the greater scheme of things, when you're trying to play like a race in online, it would be nice to see Rockstar just encourage different classes being used as well. Of course, within their own races that they do publish and they do make, I mean, not anymore these days, but they used to. You obviously have those things too. For example, something like the off-road class. Why are we able to use a bike? Get rid of that and just take the off-road vehicles themselves. Being able to also use different cars within different classes where it is fit. For example, the Shafter V12 is also being able to be used in the sports and sedans races at the same time, thus making it a more viable vehicle in both. Minor things like that can have big impacts on classes and making races a lot more interesting and giving people more choice. And if there's something that GTA used to or is strong at, it's it's choice. It's choosing whatever you want to do with a certain type of mission because you have that freedom to do it, which I personally really prioritize in GTA games and stuff like that. Having the freedom to do whatever you want. You can decide to pick a tank and do a certain mission, or you can decide to do it the old school way by getting an furnace and just using a micro SMG. Stuff like that I think should always be prioritized to give people the freedom of choice in order what vehicles they want to choose. Especially if you're going into a more competitive sense, sure, you're always going to have the best vehicle, but to have a certain balance within the cars that you're not always going to have just another pile of junk added to the game. Because at the moment, if we're watching this right now on what is in March 2020, there is a lot of supercars and a lot of sports cars in the game that are simply not being used anymore because they've just become another dime in the dozen. There's a lot of vehicles like that being added to the game too these days too, because it's another supercar, it's another sports car, you know, the list kind of goes on like that. And it is a shame to see vehicles that can possibly be quite unique, but they never get used because it's not the best one. So to give it something unique and special, for example, the Strider, while it is a terrible vehicle and you should not try to bother to race with it, it does do some funky stuff when you manage to start spinning it around. So stuff like that, having some more unique and interesting vehicles is always very welcomed, which some of the Rockstar kind of seem to have stopped doing, but that might be because they're obviously trying to get some of the more unique ideas within GTA 6. But those are just some of my thoughts. Of course, I'd love to know what you think in the comments down below. Hell, what's your favorite vehicle from GTA that you would love to see back in GTA Online, or if not even in GTA 6? Let me know in those comments down below. But with all that said and with all that done, that was it for this one. Thank you all so very much for watching. Leave a like if you enjoyed, subscribe for more, and I'll see you all later.